Yes, thanks for joining today, guys. We're going to talk specifically today around finding peace in times of overwhelm. And this, for me, is probably the most important and powerful benefit of the energy work that we practice today, that I talk about every week. But there's many different benefits. This, for me, is probably the main one. Because as we go through life, no matter who we are and where we are in life, we're going to experience times of emotional overwhelm. Particularly, when we start this journey of awakening. And for me, what is the awakening journey is where we're asked to face and integrate all of our traumas, all of our shadow, not only our individual shadow, but the collective shadow, past lifetimes. That for me is what the awakening journey is all about. Bringing all these aspects of ourselves back into the whole, facing them, reintegrating them. So there's going to be regular moments on the path, on the journey, where we feel completely overwhelmed by the energy that we're experiencing, particularly if we're highly sensitive or we're empaths, as a lot of people are. Obviously, a lot of people who are healers, a lot of people who are light workers who step onto this path are naturally empaths. You can feel not only your own energy, but other people's energy, the collective energy. I know this is the case in my own life, just feeling at times completely overwhelmed in public situations, for example, in relationships, because I didn't know how to process the energy that was coming through me. Now, the reason why I thought we'd talk around this is because I asked a question in the group this week around the subject of how do you respond to times of stress and anxiety. And there wasn't many answers there. And the ones that came through, I think a few people said quite honestly that they don't manage their stress and anxiety very well. Someone said around they just generally go to numbing through eating, for example. Another person said they just can't cope with it. Another person I remember seeing that they name their experience, name their emotions, which is labeling is a very powerful way of bringing ourselves back to the present moment. It's one I use myself, but no one really talked about, for me, which is the main way that we can respond instead of react to overwhelming emotions, which you actually feel through this energy without judgment, and getting support from others as well. For me, this has been most important. But guys, share your own experiences of dealing with particularly stress and anxiety if you've got another way of working through it. So yes, that's what inspired me to talk around this subject today. And really, it's no surprise that we struggle with these overwhelming emotions, because no one teaches us in school how to deal with overwhelming emotions. School system, for example, is very much based on finding us a job and a stable career. Our parents have come from you could say, a more low vibration energy on the planet. They weren't taught this kind of stuff, how to heal, how to manage challenging emotions. And so as a result, we've got an entire world of people who are just running around from a place of stress and overwhelm, feeling overwhelmed, under-resourced. And, we can see the results of that in the world around us and the society that we've created. So that's what we're going to talk around today. Something I've learned a lot about in the last 10 years and the last few years in particular, how to really respond when we feel overwhelmed by energy, by challenging emotions, so that we're not reacting from our internal traumas, our internal parts, and we can actually make a skillful response that doesn't harm ourselves or those around us. So over to you, Claire. Just in terms of, perhaps we could look at the past in terms of how you might have struggled with challenging emotions, overwhelming emotions like stress and anxiety, and then how that differs to how you approach these energies and an overwhelm today in your present life today.
I'm so sorry. I lost you just at the beginning of the question. Could you repeat it?
All right. Okay. Well, I'm just thinking about, where were you in the past when it came to managing emotions like stress and anxiety, for example, and how your approach has changed today to enable you to have more of a response rather than a reaction out of your parts or your past traumas.
That's a wonderful question. I think in the past, I didn't even know, I was I remember when I was at college and my mom was like, how's your health? Like, aren't you stressed? Like, aren't you having health issues because of stress? And I was like, Mom, I'm not stressed. I'm doing great. And like, for sure, right? Like, whenever I was having health issues, and it was all like stress related, it was all emotional. Like, I would have horrible bouts of indigestion, and I was like, oh, it's this thing I'm eating, or my digestion's fucked up, and that thing I'm eating. And then, you start stressing about that, and it's even worse, right? But now yeah, first of all, it's just realizing that my system is dysregulated. And also even just knowing that it's not normal if I'm trying to focus on something and I can't because I'm ruminating in my head, like thinking about, oh, like, what did I do? Or what am I gonna do? Or like, what is this person gonna say? Or what is this person thinking about me? And did I do something wrong or something like that? And I think like the first thing, which is actually just incredibly important, is just sort of catching that, right? It's like, oh, like,
awareness.
Look at me. Here I am. I'm overthinking this. So why am I overthinking this? Because there's an emotion. There's something unprocessed. There's something that needs some space, right? And so having that awareness, I am now able to take the time to actually be present with it. So, just if I don't know, if I'm trying to read a book or send an email to somebody and I just can't focus on it, right? Like, ever happens to you that you're just trying to write or read that paragraph over and over again and you're like, what is it about? And it's like, why is it? Because in my mind, I'm just overthinking something that happened or didn't happen. And I'm just, and yeah, so now I'm like, okay, well, this is not productive because I'm going to be stuck in this and it's just not worth it, right? Like, let me pause what I'm trying to do, pause trying to be productive, read this thing or write this thing or whatever, and just be present. Like, do nothing, just be present with this thing I'm experiencing. And it can be a thought, it can be, a thought pattern, a bodily sensation, and emotion. And usually it's all of these things, right? Because it starts as a sensation and it turns into an emotion and then it creates like all this mind chatter when you're trying to solve it. Like, the mind is trying to interpret it and solve it and figure it all out. And so usually, yeah, what I do, I just try to bring presence to it. If I reach out for support, and you can do different things for some people, or in some situations you just sort of stay in silence and just sit in presence with somebody else, just sort of helping. It helps to have somebody else nearby to help you regulate your system, right? Like, if you're dysregulated, sometimes it can be hard to find ground, find stability. But if somebody else is regulated, you can tap into that energy of groundedness, of peace, of calm, of, seeing things clearly, as opposed to being like, oh, like, what am I going to do with this situation? And sometimes for me personally, I think most of the times it actually helps for me to voice it. But then again, right, it's like I reach for support and what I do is I share. But I'm clear that the people that I'm sharing with, they're not going to try to solve my problem. Or if they have something to offer, they're just going to be, can I share something? Can I offer something? Right? And then I will say yes or no. I always say yes, but, because I know that, I can take it or I don't have to. But like, I wouldn't, for example, go and share this with a friend or, with a parent that I know is just going to try to solve my issue for me and tell me what to do and tell me where I've done something wrong or that I shouldn't be feeling that way. So that's not helpful. So I guess just to sort of, keep that in mind, that if you're asking somebody for support, just to be aware that, or to be sure either that they're not going to trying to, mingle, like meddle with your issue, and they're just going to hold space for you and support you. Or if you're not sure, you can voice that. You can be just, can you just hold some space for me, right? And this is all I need. I just need my experience, my emotion, my situation to be witnessed. And I'm not necessarily looking for some help, for a resolution, for advice from you.
Yeah.
So that I would say is what I would do ideally if I have, if I'm I don't know, if I'm at work, I can't always just ring a friend, right, and sit with them in presence like that. But yeah, if I can, I would at least just pause what I'm doing and just try to either sit down or even stand and just drop my awareness from the thinking mind to my heart, to my belly, to my root. Just feel the leg, feel my feet on the ground, or feel the chair underneath me, and just close my eyes for a second and just notice how my breath is, like how deep or how shallow is my breath. And if it's a situation like that, I will usually notice like, oh, my breath is rather shallow or rather quick. And so I just try to expand, my chest, my diaphragm, my belly, and just consciously try to slow my breath and maybe make some sound on the exhale, just really like just releasing, letting go, just feeling the body, feeling the breath. And so that would be sort of my go-to first thing to do. Yeah, when I sort of notice myself out of balance. Yeah.
Yes. Well, you've mentioned a lot there, and there's so much I can talk around. There's a couple of really important points that you mentioned there. Number one is that what often happens is that we try and solve this from a mind perspective first. So like there's this debate that goes on in the mind, trying to shift our thinking from perhaps a negative thought spiral and trying to make it more positive. But that really is not going to do much good if there's like a particular overwhelming energy underneath it. The key, as you said there, is to drop out of the mind, drop out of the thinking mind, and to get back into the body, because underneath the stressed out thoughts, you could say, if we take the example of stress and anxiety, which so many of us have to deal with it through our lives, you can't think your way out of stress and anxiety. The only way to respond that in a skillful way and to actually clear the underlying energy is, number one, what you said, to relax the body and then the mind. So if you can actually, for example, now drop the shoulders, unclench the jaw, and just bring your awareness from the thinking mind and feel into what's happening in the body. There may be a tightening somewhere in the body, a tension somewhere in the stomach. Perhaps there's a pressure on the solar plexus, something in the body there that you can find that is the foundation of the overwhelming emotion. And it's only when we feel through our experience from a place of feeling, from a place of relaxation, that energy can actually move through the system. If we're in our minds and we got our shoulders hunched, our jaw clenched, then energy is trapped in the system. This you could call it dysregulated energy, has got nowhere to go. So that's the number one thing, like you talked about there, that I will do. If I'm on my own, if I'm in a stressful situation, just relax the body, drop the shoulders, unclench the jaw, breathe, as you said, like just pay attention to your breathing. That will allow the energy to start moving through the system. If you can name what's happening in terms of the emotional, perhaps give it a label, but even better than that, if you can feel into what's happening without any label, without any judgment, just feel into the tightening in the stomach, feel into the collapse in the solar plexus, or whatever it is. By bringing that level of awareness, that felt level of awareness to the underlying energy, it then allows it to move through the system. Energy can start to move, flow out of the arms, flow out off the top of the head, wherever it wants to go. If we're in the mind, if we're trying to think our way out of stress and anxiety, we're going to be trapped in that energy. It's just going to perpetuate, and it's going to, stay within the system. And for a lot of people, that means, a lot of people I speak to, it's just trying to distract themselves from what's happening internally or numb it out. We've all been there. I find myself doing it from time to time. But then what you'll often find is that all of this energy then, when we go to bed at night, is still there, and it just comes to the surface. And we have problems. You can't sleep. Insomnia is such a huge issue in the world today, because we're not actually feeling through our experience. We're not processing energy as it builds up through the day, and then it all wants to come to the surface at night, and we're completely overwhelmed that we can't sleep. And obviously that just then perpetuates it. You can't sleep, you're more stressed, you're more anxious, and then it just kind of builds and builds and builds. So until we actually take the time to stop, to relax ourselves, to feel into our experience, we're never going to be able to shift this energy which is underneath the surface.
Yeah, you know, that's hilarious. I literally had that thought this morning, because I used to have such horrible insomnia. And, you know, this was like, now I know that this was always at times when like I was, you know, I had like, it was at university or at school that I was, you know, trying to like struggling to like get into some university. And then I had this job, like consuming and overwhelming and stressful. And I was just thinking about people from work, like even under the shower, right? And I had horrible insomnia. And it just occurred to me today, because yesterday it's funny because yesterday I was so overwhelmed. I was in so much overwhelm yesterday, the whole day. And then it got even more intense in the evening. And then I sat, you know, in meditation for an hour. And then I sat with, you know, and somebody else from our community for like 40 minutes. And then it occurred to me this morning that I don't even remember what's the last time I had like bad insomnia.
You're cutting it out a little bit, but I got that.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah. It's been such a long time since you've had that insomnia.
Damn.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Did you lose me there?
Lost you a little bit. We got you at the end where you said it
I
occurred to you that
video.
you don't experience insomnia to that degree anymore.
Yeah. So I was just, I mean, barely ever. Like, I just don't remember like ever lying in bed, you know, in the past months or even, you know, in the past 3 years since I started doing this work. Like, I just don't have really a recollection. Like maybe, you know, once every few months, but, you know, maybe because I had a bit too much coffee, but it just doesn't happen anymore. And I used to have so much insomnia all the time. And it just really struck me today. It's like, you know, when you metabolize the energy, when you allow the thoughts to come up during the day, you actually like, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Okay, my mind wants to go there. Okay, you know, and you take the time to meditate and just sit in quietness. You don't, your mind doesn't have to scream all of these things at you at night, right? So that's, I think that was a huge realization for me this morning.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I've been through times of insomnia as well, but I sleep very well these days. Yeah, for me, it's important to punctuate the day with presence, because we all got busy modern lives. We're working, relationships, families, finances. There's a million things, and if that's just in our own lives, or we can look out into the news and you can find a million things to be stressed out about, and it can be a very I don't actually watch the news because I think it is just kind of overly focused on the negative. But I think there's always a general sense in the human experience of anxiety. It just seems to be there underlying in the background. I think it's part of perhaps having an ego. You know, it's just part of that the mind is always on the lookout for problems, for threats, for concerns, and it will always find them if it wants to. But it's all about going beyond the mind, back into the body, back into the felt sense. And what you talked about there, which is the key aspect of the work that we do, is what we call presence. Something I talk about every week because it's so important. So we can do a certain amount of this work on our own, in the moment, you know, bringing awareness, relaxing the shoulders, as I said, the jaw, feeling into our bodies, and processing the energy that's there by ourselves. We can do that at any point. We can return to the breath. We don't have to be in full meditation. But then it's going to be quite limited in terms of what we can do in terms of our healing. Healing happens when we have the presence of another human being with us in what we call co-resonance. So when we're both dropped into our systems, we relax the bodies and we feel into our system together, there's a certain field that is created between us. We don't have to be physically present. This can happen on on a quantum level beyond space and time, feeding into our experience together. Now, what happens when we've got somebody else there in a place of co-regulation as well is that our system gets that sense of safety, of support, of connection, and it just takes our system to another level. Suddenly, my experience usually is that I get this feeling of well-being, of connection, of love, support, and my whole system starts to relax. The mind quietens down. The parts that are upset, concerned, or frightened, they all calm down as well. And all these parts of ourselves really want that keep us up, can keep us up at night, is that level of presence, that level of compassion and support. That's what they want. That's what these parts of ourselves didn't get when they were formed. A lot of these parts, well, all of these parts really were formed when we were children, from the age of 0 to 7, and they're formed, these traumas, when we're not met with presence and regulation by our caregivers. No one's fault. That's just the way that the society's been, the way our planet's been. Nobody was taught this kind of work. No one was taught how to regulate their systems. And so we've got all these childhood parts of ourselves that are trapped in time. And what most people do is kind of keep themselves busy and not want to look at this stuff because it is difficult. It can be painful to look at. But when we actually take the time out to sit with someone else in presence, to feel through our experience, these parts at last get what they're really looking for, which is a sense of connection, of safety and support. And that allows them to reintegrate back into the system. And this is what I always explain to people. What healing work is essentially bringing all these fractured parts of ourselves back into the whole, slowly going through the layers of trauma and conditioning, bringing ourselves back into the whole. And that's when we can experience the sense of peace, of grounded presence, and ultimately joy that we're all seeking. That doesn't mean we're going to experience that all the time. As you touched on there, Claire, you've obviously had a couple of days where you've experienced the overwhelm. I've had a great week, and today I woke up and I can tell my system is under-resourced. There's some difficult emotions that I've been feeling through this morning. That will always be the case. Doesn't matter where you're at on the awakening journey, doesn't matter how much work you've done, you're going to wake up sometimes and you're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel under-resourced. So that's why it's so important on those days to focus on the inner work, to be able to reach out for support, and to take the time out to actually feel through our present moment experience. So we can actually start reintegrating those parts instead of those parts hijacking us and controlling our lives. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah,
Claire?
absolutely. I was just thinking when you were talking. I was just thinking as you were talking. Just yesterday, I was experiencing all this overwhelm and emotions, just like you said. It's for me like an emotion that keeps showing up is shame. And it's like almost, it doesn't really matter. It's like, and these emotions, they're addictions, because what happens in our body when we have an emotion, there's all these different chemicals like neurotransmitters and and all these like hormones and like dopamine and cortisol and whatnot, and all these chemicals just get released. And so it's literally a chemical, process. So they're literally addictions, right? And so
Yeah.
For somebody it can be anxiety. For me, for example, there's a lot of shame. And so it doesn't really matter what I do, but there's always gonna, the brain is always gonna find something to be like, oh, now you did this, so you should be ashamed. And maybe it's not a shameful thing at all. Maybe it's a good thing. But it's just like, oh, but maybe they're not going to think it's a good thing. So yesterday I was sitting in a guided meditation, and maybe you were there actually. And the person guiding the meditation said, no matter what you're experiencing, no matter what you're currently stuck on, if your mind is running in, any circles, can you just bring that here to this container and just allow this, emotion or this thought or this thing that is going on in your body or your mind, can you just bring it here and just have it be fully witnessed and held? by the container. And I was like, you know what? I can't actually do that. I can take that shame. And that's like this thing that wants to be seen the least, right? That's like
Yes.
everything in there is screaming like, hide, run,
Yeah.
don't tell them, don't show anyone, like don't even like just disappear from planet Earth, right? And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna take this and I'm just gonna bring it here, and it's okay. And I think at the end, that was so healing, right? Then I was able to have a peaceful good night's rest, and I dozed off so peacefully yesterday. I was so surprised this morning because it's something so difficult and so counterintuitive, and like everything in you is trying to scream like, don't do that.
Yeah.
But when you actually do that, when you actually permission that, like you were saying, right, once we start reintegrating all these parts that we've pushed away and suppressed and tried to hide, they'll stop screaming at us. They'll stop trying to wake us up and releasing all that cortisol and all this anxiety, right? Because we just give it some presence, and then it doesn't have to work and fight so hard, right? And like constantly revving up. It's like, no, we need to suppress you. And then this thing is trying to get your attention, and then everything else in you is like, no, we need to push you back. So it's like, oh, this is basically what's going on inside of us. That's why we're like so revved up when we're in anxiety or stress. Like we're sweating, right, and not digesting and all these things, because our mind and everything in us is running like a million miles an hour. So yeah, just like you said, once you just sort of permission that, then things can be metabolized essentially.
Yeah, well said. I mean, that's one of the things I say. One of the first things I say on my weekend group healing meditations. If anyone's interested in attending one of those in my community, just type meditation in the comments. One of the intentions I say at the start is that however we've shown up today, whatever parts are present, however we're feeling, is perfect. That is and releasing all expectations of how this meditation is going to go, because there's a tendency, if we want to show up around people, that we have to be in a kind of high vibration place and happy and joyful, and ideally that's how we'd like to show up in front of people, but we all know that that's not often the case. That a lot of the time we're not feeling that well, and it's all about being okay with not being okay, essentially. Bringing those frightened, shameful parts of ourselves that don't want to be seen, that would much rather hide away and deal with it by themselves. And by the way, this still happens for me a lot today. If I'm really feeling a lot of internal pain and discomfort, there's a tendency to just think, well, I'll just deal with this on my own. I'll just go into my own process and meditate and feel for it on my own. And usually after about an hour of that, I'm like, okay, this is not working. This is not shifting, processing through my system. And at that point, then, the last thing these parts want to do is, as you said there, Claire, is to be seen by another person. But that's exactly how we process and heal them, by actually having somebody else sit in presence with us and presence those parts, those emotions that don't want to be seen. Because even though they don't want to, that's really the only way that we can heal, is by having someone with us, that connection, so that we can be seen exactly as we are. Whether that's incredibly frightened, whether that's shame, whether that's disgust, whether that, you name it. All of these painful emotions, what they really want, all these parts, they just want to be seen in presence by another human being. And that's how we can heal. Because what I want to point to as well, hopefully you're still there, Claire. What I've noticed from you, Claire, certainly in recent times, is your ability to really express exactly how you're feeling, express emotions fully in containers with quite large groups of people. Something that honestly I still find very difficult to do, to really show up as myself, to express fully. This is something that I've noticed you have really worked on, and I think is very courageous the way you're able to do that. So has there been a switch? Has something changed for you in terms of you're able to kind of sit in a large group of people and express in that way? Did something shift for you at some point?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's, for me, it's like, like I've been saying, it's like this. For me, I really struggle like to show up in front of people and bring myself really to the table and to the world. And secretly, that's really what I desire. I want to speak up on stages and inspire people, but then there's all these parts of me that just, start throwing all that shame at me. And it's like, who do you think you are? And what are people going to think? And you said this, so you should be ashamed. And it's been very difficult for me. And even, taking up in group containers, group meditations, just like you said, I would be in this container for minutes, and I would really want to. Sorry, normally it's very quiet, but today, of course, everything around me is so noisy. Um, so I would secretly really, crave that, like that attention and that sort of space to be held for me, but it just did not feel safe at all. And then at some point, and so I think it was really because I was in this container for, a certain amount of months, I don't know, 9 months, and then this container, like for me, the duration of that container was going to end, and I just realized, like, wow, I really wanted this, right? I really wanted to take up this space and be a part of this container, and I have not done it. I just sort of been sitting in the back. So, I sort of reached out and in advance because I knew that, if I like show up in the group meditation or the group call, I'm not gonna be like, hi, today I'm gonna take up space. So I reached out in advance. I was like, I'm gonna like, tell the leaders that that day I'm gonna take up space, because if I don't do it now, I'm just not gonna
Clears
do it.
connection. There we go.
I know.
Sorry, just lost you
Sorry,
briefly.
it's
Just lost you briefly, but you're back.
mountain networks.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, mountain networks. So yeah, as I was saying, I had to sort of make sure in advance that, they would know and they would call me out. And then they did. And as it happens, it was a day when I just really lost all my marbles, and I just sort of collapsed on that group call. And I was so deep in the process, like it wasn't even possible for me to hold back. I was just like, well, this is it. This is where we're at.
Oh, I've just lost clear of it again. Let's see if she comes back, because this is really powerful. Actually, for context, we sit in large group containers with a lot of other people doing this work, and we are encouraged to express ourselves openly and freely without any restriction. And Claire, basically towards the end of this program that we're in, fully expressed a lot of sadness, a lot of overwhelm. Now, not going into the story behind it, which is important, not going into the mind and talking about why she felt she was upset or overwhelmed, purely feeling through it in the present moment, finding that connection within the body to that underlying sensation, the energy underneath the thought process. Because if we go into the story, and this is what I was going to say around therapy, talk therapy, which can be very powerful for people. But what we're essentially doing is we are trying to heal through the mind. We're going back into our old stories, into our old traumas, talking them through, which to a point can be very effective. It gets energy coming to the surface.
There we go.
You're back, Claire. I'm just saying, like, this is what the way you're able to express from the present moment was so powerful. You didn't go into the story. You didn't feel the need to explain why you were feeling the way you were feeling from mind. You felt through the experience in the moment with a number of other people holding the space, holding support for you. And that's why it's so effective. I'm just saying, this is what I think can be a restriction when it comes to something like talk therapy. It's just trying to heal from mind. So we're talking through our experiences, our traumas, And essentially what we're doing is we're re-traumatizing our system, because we're not activating the felt sense. Just by talking, it brings the energy up. But if we're not feeling for our experience, then it gets stuck, goes back into the system. Just re-traumatize your system over and over again. So what you did very effectively in that situation was you were just talking through your present moment felt experience. No need to explain what the story was. No need to explain what the thoughts were coming up around it. You were fully engaged in the body, and you had a group of people there who were just holding you energetically as you expressed this energy. And that's why I think the healing was so impactful and powerful, not just for you, but for everyone in that container felt the same healing taking place within them as well.
Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, I was just gonna say when I left you guys, that the change, like I have really experienced such a huge shift in really my experience of life. Like the day afterwards, I was just sort of at work, and the situation wasn't great, but I was just sort of, I was really like a giddy girl, you know, that just like falls in love with a boy or something, just like in this sort of like disbelief of like, wow, did this really happen? Did I really have a bunch of people just support me and like, you know, not say anything and just be there for me for like 40 minutes? And I just couldn't believe it, you know, because I had never allowed myself and I to take up space in that way, and I had never allowed anyone to hold space for me and support me in that way. And so it's just something I had never experienced. And so, you know, because of that, you know, I had never believed that this was possible, that something like this was available, that, you know, I could have people support me like that and just witness me and see me and love on me, essentially. And it's like, since then, it just, my system opened up so much, and I'm able to receive like other people's love and support and presence in such a different way. Or like maybe I just wasn't able to receive it at all before. I don't know, right?
Yes.
It's so profound, and it's, you know, it's just a completely new experience for me. It's difficult to describe. Yeah.
All by opening up to support. But it's something that is really difficult. People I work with and my own journey, I know this to be true, to actually, when we're struggling with something, to actually ask for someone to hold space for us, and to support us while we're going through something really difficult. Really, really challenging, because as we said, the last thing we want to do really is be seen in that kind of state. We just want to go inside and deal with it ourselves. But that's how we heal. It's asking for support. It's being witnessed by somebody who can hold presence within their own system. And by the way, we're not just talking about anybody supporting and witnessing you. We're talking about people who've done this work over a long period of time, who know how to ground their energy, who know how to bring their awareness into their bodies. So we're not holding space or supporting someone from the mind and thinking through it. We're dropping into the body, into that, you could say, intuitive mind, that universal intelligence, feeling through that and allowing the healing to take place through us. So we're not doing the healing. We're just holding a space for the person to heal themselves, you know, finding that ground within us so the person can find the ground within them. So it's really important to have people, have a community who can support us in that way, not just people, not just anybody, you know. And I think, you know, it's particularly true if we're, for example, I wouldn't do that for my close friends or family necessarily. I think because there can be some history there. Although I do it actually without them knowing. I kind of hold space as I go through the day. But I think it's important really to have people that can be neutral to our experience, who can just drop in, feel through it with us, and provide that kind of that grounded presence of support. Very, very powerful. But it's something that not many people have in our society, is a community that can support us through challenging times, that we can reach out to when we need it. Many people, particularly on this path, are trying to go through life on their own, and very much closed off to the collective. But if you imagine, you know, I talk about this all the time, but if we're doing that, if we're trying to go through life, we're trying to heal and evolve ourselves on our own, it's like we're closed off to the universe. If we start opening up to support, asking for support, sitting with people regularly, it's like our system opens up and we suddenly are able to receive the universe. We're able to download information. We're able to upgrade ourselves. We're able to receive financial abundance, for example. By opening up our system to receive support, we can receive support in so many other different ways other than just working on healing our parts. Opening up our system, reconnecting with the divine, with the universe. And as a result, we feel that connection within. We feel that joy that we're all seeking. It comes through the support of sitting with others. That's been my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, yeah, like there's just a little caveat, right? Like it's like, yeah, we're not open to receive support, but because we don't even know that that's a possibility, right? And like we don't know how to give that support and that sort of compassion to ourselves. So we don't know how to give that to other people. And so, like we are not necessarily surrounded by communities of people who can do that for us, right? So for me, absolutely, that was something I didn't know existed. Like I would have never imagined that something like that is possible. So yeah, it's difficult. Like you said, like our parents hadn't had that space held for them, hadn't had that support, that like emotional support and attunement, and so we didn't get that, so we didn't learn how to do that, and so that's why it can literally be life changing once you realize that something like that, something so profound and just so loving and encompassing can exist, essentially.
Yeah, there's been a big shift on the planet, and like you said, we're all going to have these traumas inside us from this lifetime, from collective previous lifetimes, because the energy on the planet has not been like it is today, where with the raising of the consciousness, people are coming together, connecting, holding space for each other, learning how to co-regulate their own systems, how to regulate their own system. This knowledge just hasn't been out there, and as a result, we've all got these traumas in our system from childhood. Thankfully, things are changing. So we've all got lots and lots of layers to work through. And we do that by coming together, feeling for our present moment experience with support. We can't do it on our own. Human beings aren't designed to go through life on their own. We evolved in small groups, tribes, communities. And that's when we're at our best. That's when we're at our happiest and healthiest. So that's really the work, I think, is to start reconnecting human beings in an authentic way, coming together, healing ourselves. As we heal ourselves, we can help to heal the collective, essentially, and those around us, because we're giving off a certain vibration that just impacts others in a different way. Instead of coming from our own traumas, conditioning, our own parts, we're coming from grounded presence within ourselves, and that naturally just affects people around us. And in that way, we're doing our bit for the world and humanity as a whole, which for me, that's the best thing we can do. Heal ourselves, and you will have an impact on the world around you, rather than going out and trying to help and serve others from a place of feeling, lack inside or not good enough inside. Heal yourself, like bring yourself to a place of balance and well-being within, and then go and serve from that space, rather than serving, trying to help and serve others because you don't feel like you're good enough inside. So important, I think, that piece as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. I'm gonna have to bounce in a minute, but I just want to sort of, I mean, I feel like it's been said, really, but it's just it is so absolutely life-changing, and like you said, like it's, I think for some, like vast majority of people on planet Earth, and it shows up in different ways, but there's like a sense of unworthiness, right? Like we all believe for one reason or another we're not worthy or this or that, and some people have a higher level of worthiness. Like some people are not worthy of a house, and some people are not worthy of a good job, and some people are not worthy of 10 million,
Relationship.
pounds
Yeah.
or whatever. Exactly. Right. So we all have our own version of that, but we all struggle with that. And whenever we want to grow or gain something more, we need to work through another layer of that. So it's like it's like so many parts of you believe that you're not worthy of that love, of being seen, of that support, of somebody else's time. And if even that, when I went through that experience, like that was all present. But if you can just sort of dip your toes in it and allow a little bit more support and a little bit more support and a little bit more support to go and, receive that in your system, and just trying to prove them wrong. Even if you don't believe it, like, I'm not worthy, just give it a try once and be like, let's see how that goes. Let's see if people, if they're still here, if they're still going to support. Let's see how that feels. And if you can just allow yourself to experience that once and twice, and maybe once for 5 minutes, and then the next time for 10 minutes, just you're gonna start proving these parts of yourself that think that they're so unworthy. They're gonna start to be proven wrong, and like you said, that's when you get to receive more love. You get to receive, I don't know, a better paycheck, more support, all of the things, right?
It's all support. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we create that life abundance that we all deserve, even though we might think we're not worthy of it. We are, ultimately. Beautiful, Claire. Thanks so much for sharing your experience today. I'd love to go and walk in those mountains behind you. But it's
I know, right?
here in the UK.
I wish I could go as well. I need to go back to work because
back to work.
Currently, I don't believe that I'm worthy of not working and being healthy like that. So I have some work to do.
Of not needing a job anymore. There's always been more work to do. That's what I say to people. There's no end to it.
Exactly.
There'll be more healing, more evolution that we can do. And it's just about having support on the path. But beautiful, Claire. Thanks for sharing your own experience today. I'll let you go and I'll wrap up here.
Thank you. Bye.
See you soon. Bye for now. Yes, quite jealous of those surroundings that Claire is in Switzerland there. Pretty grey and overcast in the UK. But I hope you enjoyed that one, guys. Claire sharing her own experience. I've witnessed her evolve so much, a sort of flourish in this work herself over the last year. We've been on this journey for a few years together. Really made a big breakthrough this year, I think, being able to share authentically, vulnerably, openly in a large group of people who are there to support. And that's how we change, how our lives change, is the ability to be able to open up support and to sit with our internal challenges, our internal overwhelm, pain, whatever's there for us, and to be seen in that state. That's how healing happens. So yes, if you feel called, if you resonate with what we're talking about today, if you'd like to have experience of this work, this energy healing work, you can book a call with me, one-on-one, free energetic realignment call at a day and time of your choice. I'll put the link underneath this video. Yep, as usual, but it's join.thebuddhaspot.com/call. There's a video on there where I explain a bit more about the call itself and the structure and the benefits you can experience on that one-on-one call with me. The other option, I'll be opening up one of my group healing meditations with my community. I think it'll be the weekend after this one. I usually do it mid-month, so it'll be mid-March. But just type meditation in the chat if you'd like to have experience of the group healing meditation for free with my community. People like Claire have been doing this work for a long time. I guide the whole thing. We drop into our bodies together and we feel through whatever is ready to be processed and healed in the moment. Very, very powerful container with a lot of people who are very experienced. As I say, done a lot of this energy work over time. It's a very powerful healing container that we create together. So yes, if you'd like to have experience in that group field with my community, just type meditation in the comments and I'll send you the Zoom link an hour before we get underway. So yes, that's it. If you'd like to experience this work, do get in touch, guys, or if you'd like to share your own experiences, ask any questions, happy to answer them anytime. This work is so powerful, so simple as well. If we can just bring ourselves to start opening up to support, everything can change for us. But it's up to us to take that first step. So wherever you are, I hope you have a good day to come, and I'll be back next week. Bye for now.